This is a palm sander or a random orbital sander. Technically, this one with the 5-inch disc is called a random orbital sander, but we tend to call them all palm sanders, even the ones that aren't palm sanders. These are useful for sanding lumber and sanding wood and some other materials. The cordless ones are not designed for long production work. Cordless, short spot sanding, and you do it briefly and then you move on and do something else. If you need to do a lot of repeated sanding, you want to move up to the ones with the cord, like this DeWalt. Plug it in, electricity, you don't have to change batteries. It's got a lot more ongoing force. It's going to be consistent. Your battery's not going to drain, and then your action of your sanding isn't going to change from time to time as the battery drains. So the DeWalt random orbital sander, the Porter cable random orbital sander, they all work the same. The corded ones only have a 1-speed function to them. They are either on or they're off. The two Makita cordless ones have some variable speeds. This is technically a palm sander. It's also orbital, but the palm sander takes a square sheet of sanding paper. You have to cut your sandpaper to the right size, and it's not the size of this. It has to wrap around and lock into this, and then this grips down, and then you tighten that down one side or the other, and it pinches down on the paper. The random orbital sanders have a Velcro surface, so you tear one piece off and you put another piece on. This would be useful if you're doing fine woodworking and working on your final layers of sanding before you do your final finishes, or sanding your final finishes if you're doing a polyurethane clear coat or that sort of thing. This is more of a fine woodworking tool for some of the finer finishes. Not as aggressive for taking off wood quickly and over large areas. It's designed to smooth and finish wood. Here's a DeWalt palm sander. So we have two of the palm sanders. I don't think they get used a whole lot. This one doesn't even have its clips put in properly. There we go. This one's clips are a little bit easier to use than the Makitas. And the clips that hold it down are a little bit easier to manage. Usually these are 1/4 of a sheet of sandpaper for the entire thing. So if you take your full 9 by 12 or whatever the size the sheet is, and you cut it into 4 pieces equally, each of the 1/4 sheets should fit in this and be the right size. Safety glasses are required at all times while using this tool. Safety goggles are recommended due to airborne sawdust. Hearing protection is required while using this tool. A dust mask or N95 protection is required due to airborne sawdust. Long or loose hair, neckties, and loose or baggy clothing must be contained. Tie back or tie up hair, roll up long sleeves, tuck in your shirt. Rings, watches, and loose jewelry should not be worn. Pre-operational safety checks. Locate and ensure you are familiar with all machine operations and controls. Controls and adjustments may vary from tool to tool, particularly among different manufacturers of the same type of tool. Use the appropriate sander for the size of the job. Small palm sanders and random orbital sanders are best used for smaller jobs. Check your sandpaper for flaws, imperfections, wear, or damage. Replace as needed. For portable belt sanders, adjust the tracking belt as needed. Uneven pressure will cause the belts to drift, and this will require adjustment while sanding. Clamp or secure the workpiece to the table or to sawhorses for more control of the tool. Check your workspaces and walkways to ensure that no slip or trip hazards are present. Pick up cut off scraps. Sweep up sawdust regularly. Keep the table and the work area clear of all tools, off-cut lumber, and sawdust. If the tool is equipped with a trigger lock, make sure the lock releases properly. Some tools come with a trigger lock, and the trigger lock allows you to pull the trigger, and if you squeeze the trigger and you push that trigger lock in, then when you release the trigger, it stays locked and it keeps running the whole time until you depress the trigger a second time and it releases. That's handy if you're going to be doing a lot of work with the tool over and over again and you don't want to just be squeezing and compressing the trigger the whole time. Your hand's going to go tired, and the trigger locks are a handy thing. They don't really make the trigger locks for tools that are cordless. They usually are only for tools that have cords. And here we have a really poorly coiled cable. So we're going to fix that while we're here. All nice and tidy. No one's picking up after you in the scene shop, so you have to pick up after yourself. And you have to keep the place clean and feel like it's a place that people want to come to and work. Operational safety checks. These are safety checks you must be aware of at all times while using the tool. And you must check them and perform them every time you use the tool on every single operation or cut. Keep your hands away from the sanding surface at all times. Use light pressure only. The weight of the tool is designed to apply a good basic pressure while operating. You should not have to apply excessive pressure in order to get the tool to work. If you do need to apply additional pressure, check your sandpaper for wear or change to a rougher grit of sandpaper. Keep the sander moving across the workpiece to avoid heat buildup, which can prematurely wear out the abrasive paper and burn the workpiece. For best results when sanding wood, sand parallel with the grain. Always unplug the tool or remove the battery before changing belts, discs, or pads, or when making adjustments. Be aware of the cord location. Keep the cord out of the path of belts, discs, and pads. For portable belt sanders, remove from service if tracking is faulty. Belt sanders are designed to remove finishes on fine woodworking projects. They are not designed to remove large quantities of wood and material. If you need to smooth lumber or remove a lot of material, you probably should use a planer tool instead of the belt sander. All right, the last cordless tool we have is the cordless random orbital sander. The random orbital sander are round and they make a vibration and circular pattern that's supposed to be random so that if you're doing it on fine woodworking, hardwoods, it doesn't show up as going against the grain or visible scratches. We have two of them, and they are one of the most heavily maligned and abused tools because people don't pay attention to the discs wearing out. And I've already got this. I just replaced both these discs last year because they were trashed the year before. And this one's already got some sort of burned activity through here where someone was not paying attention to what they were doing, and they just, yeah, it doesn't, now the things aren't going to stick to it. It's just not gonna, yeah. I gotta buy this replacement disc and replace it. Collection bag for sawdust. You should empty it regularly. It's not gonna fill up before it starts to continue to spill dust back into the sander. So it just partially full, and that's probably time to empty it. So empty it regularly. The other one is even more full. Yeah. It's just there to collect the dust so you're not breathing it. It's not there to be an efficient vacuum of all the dust. It's just there to help keep the dust from going in your lungs. Although you'll wear it with this, you'll also wear a dust mask with it. There are different grits. This one says 80 on it. This one says 60. This one says 100, 120, and 220. So the grit sizes is the smaller the number, the rougher the sandpaper material. So if I want to be aggressive, I want to use the 60. That'll take off more wood faster. If I want to be fine detailed and make it polished and ready for finish, like a clear coat, a polyurethane, or some other staining or something, I want to use 220 and then eventually move up to 440 or some higher grit. But don't start with the 220. Don't even start with the 120. If you're just doing some rough sanding, start with a low number. I'm going to use the 60 for this because I just want to be aggressive and do some demonstration. Center it the best you can. It's Velcroed, it attaches. When you use them and they're used, throw them in the trash. We don't need to collect them if they're partially used and they're not they have no surface material left. So when they get to a certain point, throw them away. This has 3 speeds, 1, 2, 3, and then it goes back to 1, 2, 3, and then 0 for off. Cordless ones are also just for little spot work. The battery is not going to last long if you're making a fine piece of furniture or something and you're making a countertop or a workbench for your shop at home. The battery is just not going to cut it for you. You need a corded one for that. But for a lot of spot stuff that we would do here, this would work fine. So as with any sander, that's me trying to take off the edges here. If I'm trying to just sand down a smooth surface, you don't want to just stay in place because that's going to heat up the sandpaper, it's going to heat up the wood, it's going to start putting burn marks on the wood. You need to be constantly in motion. So just back and forth. And if this were a fine project I was doing for home where I want to be clean and sharp and having it look good, the grain is going this way, so I want my motion to be kind of with the grain. I don't want to go back and forth the other way. This is going to put scratches in the wood that will show up when I do finish. So I just want to go back and forth this way. Nice and steady. If you don't want to round the corners, you've got to be real careful about being square. If I start getting tired and I go like that, now I've just rounded the corner a little bit. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to round the corner. I wanted to keep a nice square edge. Sanders come in handy. The cordless ones are useful. There's the rounded edge here. And I didn't quite go underneath here. I couldn't get at that from the angle. I'd have to turn the wood around, do it some more. But the cordless orbital sander, random orbital sander, are handy for some quick work that you need to do on site. If you're doing a lot of production work that has a lot of sanding, go for the one with the cord that plugs into electricity. Don't use the corded ones. But if you're just doing a little bit of spot sanding here and there, trying to take some stuff off, use these. Don't use these power sanders for sanding joint compound, for filling cracks on flats. For that, you want to use a hand sander. The power sanders are going to put all of that joint compound dust into the air, and you're going to breathe it. So you don't want to do that. These are potential hazards to be aware of while operating this tool. This tool may generate flying debris and airborne sawdust. Contact with abrasive belts, discs, or pads can cause skin abrasion and more serious injuries. Losing control of the tool and/or the workpiece. Always secure your workpiece. Sanding tools create inhalation hazards from sawdust and fine particles. Always wear a dust mask or respirator protection. Noise levels can rise above 100 decibels. Protect your ears by wearing hearing protection while using this tool. Do not use faulty equipment. If something is not working properly, or if you suspect something is wrong with the tool or machine, please report this to your instructor and/or to the A&L technical director. Do not force the sander. If you find yourself needing to do so, check the condition of your sandpaper, switch to a larger sanding tool, or use another tool for the job. Never overreach. Housekeeping. Hold the tool until the motor comes to a complete stop. Only after it stops may you set the tool on the work table. Blow dirt and dust out of the motor housing with clean, dry air. Sweep and vacuum all wood chips and dust. When you're putting away your tools, you want to coil the cable and put it away properly. Now there's 2 or 3 methods of doing the cable coiling and dressing the cable and putting the tool away properly. I'm going to tell you which ones are better and which ones are not so good for the tool. The first one you'll see is if it has a zip tie or a tie line on it. That's real easy. It's just like coiling cable, which you're going to learn in electrics when you take the electrics class, the lighting class. And you just coil it up into a nice, small, tidy spool. And then you take that Velcro tie, you see the tie, and you just wrap it around, and that bundles it. And that helps, and then you can just sort of tuck it around the tool and then put it away. The second way to do the cable is to, first of all, untangle your mess here. This one was not put away thoughtfully or with any care to the next person using it or the tidiness of the tool room. So you take your cable and you fold it in half, especially with a long cord. This is really good. Then you fold it in half a second time. So you get it till it's about around 2 feet to 18 inches to 2 feet, and then you take this end, loose end, not the end that's closest to the tool, but the end that's furthest from the tool, and you just go wrap it around, and then you pull these loops through, and it makes a nice, tidy little bundle. And that is ready to be put away neatly. The third method, not so effective and not really very preferred, is to take your tool and to just wrap it around a lot. This doesn't really secure it. You can sneak it through here in the end if you want. But what this does is this puts a little bit of a strain on this part of the cord as it goes into the housing and the motor. And it's got a strain relief on there. That's that extra rubber there. But you're going to, if you do this often, you're going to prematurely wear that, and you're going to have to replace your cord faster than you would otherwise. If it doesn't have a Velcro tie on it, then do the fold in half method. Fold it in half a second time, and then take these ends and just tie it in a nice loop. And that will keep all the cables tidy, that'll keep the tool room clean and organized, and everyone will be happy.